Hi everyone. Good afternoon. This is a seminar organized by our department in scope of the graduate school open seminars for everyone, open academic seminars. I'm a little bit excited today because the guest speaker of this seminar today is my previous student who completed dissertation under my supervisorship during the last 3 years. And we really, surprised and also liked the dissertation while she was defending in the jury. And the dissertation is addressing, the study is addressing really, a recent topic in the center of the discussions, because in our lessons, we refer to the discussions on the reverse wave of democracies, based on the experiences of different regions and countries. But what we never that it can be a case for a specific European countries, but in last decade we observed, like in many regions of the world, we observed also of democracies, also European continent. So countries were analyzed by our previous students, recent graduate Ecem Gacener. The case countries were Poland and Hungary, and based on her 3-year study, he analyzed democratic backsliding within the European Union. So the thesis is already completed. Ecem is next to me right now. Which month, Ecem? Last September, August. Ecem completed her dissertation, and after the thesis jury, this is the first seminar for her. So we are very honored to have her today together with us. So this is a hybrid seminar, so it's a little bit hard for us to manage the process, but it's good that we have our students and participants, online participants, approximately 10 people is here. And also in our classroom, we have our researchers and students together with us. So, we are very excited to listen Ecem and her presentation. And we will change the places right now. I would like to invite Ecem for her presentation regarding the democratic reverse waves in Poland and Hungary as the case studies of the European Union member countries. She will have around 25 minutes presentation, and after the presentation, the floor is open for your questions regarding the presentation and for sure for the discussions, upcoming discussions.
Hello again. Yeah, I think it's okay. Altı hocam. Okay. Okay, hello everyone again, and thank you so much to join my thesis seminar. Today I'm going to present my thesis, which is the democratic backsliding within the European Union, the case of Hungary and Poland. Under this title, my main research question is how does the EU deals with the democratic backsliding within their member countries? This is my main questions, and I'm looking to perspective from the European Union side rather than the Hungary and Poland, because I'm looking at what are the mechanisms that European Union have to prevent democratic backsliding, and are these mechanisms are enough to stop, or what are the absence between the institutions or the mechanisms that European Union that trying to stop democratic backsliding. And I choose the Hungary and Poland for my case studies because these are the main representatives of the democratization within the European Union. So, and also the both countries are the ex-communist countries. So this is the main, like the reason of the starting of the backsliding within both countries. In my next, like 25 minutes, I am mainly talking about the three main topics. Like I started with the theoretical framework that I use while my researching. The first one is the democratization, and the second one is the de-democratization. In order to understand the de-democratization, it is important to know that what democratization is and how we can describe a one state a democratic. This is important for us to understand the de-democratization process. First of all, we are looking to the democratization, and then we we are shifting to the de-democratization to understand what happened for the both countries. And then I looked the second part of my thesis, I looked the EU mechanisms for providing and sustaining democratizations. Establishment from the European Union, they adopt democracy at the primary condition for within the Union, of course, the candidate countries as well. So they use the policy documents like agreements, treaties, or the parliament decisions, etc., to implement and protect democracy within the Union. At the same time, they use the conditionality to the outside of the European Union for the candidate countries. And at the end of the day, I talk about specifically Hungary and Poland. First of all, we are going to look at how Hungary and Poland Europeanized after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and then how they started to shift the democratization and what EU doing about the backsliding in the democracy. First of all, without getting the democratization process, I want to ask that what can we define the democracy? What is the definition of democracy? Can you describe it, or you can describe if you want? How we can describe a one state democratic? What are the conditions? Or do we have one specific definition for the country as a country, like a democratic? If you have, you can say if you want. Okay, I can do myself. Like, yeah, of course, we are seeing that the definition of the democracy is date back to ancient Greek times, and as you can see from the Demos and Kratos. And the reason that I'm asked this question is that we don't have the definite democratic definition, because okay, the ancient Greeks are defined democracy, but the modern times democracy understanding is too far and different from the past times. So also our perceptions about the democracy is different, even not without describing. And as we mentioned, that democracy is a system of representative government, means in which the representatives are chosen by free competitive elections. And also they mentioned that the right to political participation remained mostly in the hands of minority and make political steps with using direct vote. At that time, the ancient Greek times, especially the elites have the power of the vote and participate. And this is, at that time, this is called democracy, but now we have the right to participate as well within society members. And as you can see, there are the other different definitions of the democracy. First of all, Schumpeter defined the procedural definition of the democracy, which you can see the minimalist standards. He defined that if there is a voting system, if there is an election within the country, we can call this the democratic one. And then the Dahl added more detailed definition for the minimalist and classic definition of the Schumpeter's. He defined that we have to, also he added the 7 criteria for the democracy, and at the social layers, the political layers, the other parts of the, and created the polyarchy thesis. He defines that with the rise of the, you can see the right of the picture, with the increasing in the inclusive, like the society's participation and the competitive, it creates more democratic, and he called it the polyarchy. And then, of course, the in the democracy third way thesis, he described democracy as a decision maker's selection with free, fair, and honest elections. Yeah, we can clearly see that someone's described democracy as just with the elections and free, fair elections, and some parts are just we have to look at the social side or the political side, etc. It depends from our perspective. When we to the democratization process, explains the evolution of an undemocratic political regime towards a democratic order in which based on the rule of law. In here, this is the famous thesis that the third wave of democracy. He mentioned in the history we have the third waves that democratization happened. First one is after the aftermath of the World War I, is the early 90s, and then the second one is come with the end of the victory of the Allied powers and with the democratization of the British colonies, and the third one is coming with the end of the collapse of the Soviet Union, of course. And then the Lipset add more economic way to define the democratization. He argues that if a country is more economically developed, the changes for the emergence of the democratic political system is much higher than the underdeveloped countries. This means that, of course, every economically developed companies have to be democratic, but the quality of the democracy is much better than the underdeveloped countries. And then Acemoğlu and Robinson, in the book of the Economic Origins of Dictatorship and Democracy, also mentioned that the beginning of the democratization process is related to the conflicts that are the minorities rich and the majorities poor, as I mentioned before. And also Whitehead at the near the economic ones, he had the social construction in his definition. And we are coming to the democratization process. This is, we can simply see that what are the democratization is the reverse things are happening in the democratization process. The definition can be the retroactive weakening of the certain rules such as competitive elections, freedom of speech, economic conditions, and accountability of the government. All the decrees for this, all the elements are help us to describe the democratization process. Linz created this 4 issue for the explaining the democratization process. In the lack of the freely organizing on political issues or freedom of expression, fundamental rights and freedoms, and fair and competitive changes between the leaders, the lack of these 4 issues creates the democratization process. The signals of the democratization, of course. The signals of the other democratization is the election day vote fraud, which means that at the election time, they can do the manipulations over the votes or make an unfair vote counting or the ballot box fraud to change they don't want to lose the power in the government. So they are do everything what they have. And then most common form of the democratization is manipulating over elections, as I mentioned. These are happening with the intimidate opposition. This means that the oppositions, they control all the media, all the propagandas. They don't pave the way the opposition parties to talk about their ideas or ideologies. So the oppositions now started to think, okay, we don't have any belief to win again, so they just give up the race. And of course, they restricting the use of media. They put their own stakeholders over the media, and then they started to control all the media outlets and the news, and of course the social media at the same time. Of course, they giving the limiting funds for the campaigns to the opposition parties, and they preventing voter recruitment. And Levinsky and Ziblatt mentioned in the How Democracies Die book, democratic orders are now regressing within the framework of movements that are under the name of democracy rather than military coups. When we look at both the democratized countries, we are seeing that, okay, they have the election systems, they have the media, they have the education, they are all proper, but when we deeply look all of them, they are not use the free media, or they are not free in the education, or they not represent their ideas even in the social media. So they created like the umbrella. Okay, we are looking like a liberal, but when we look at it deeply, this is not possible to see that the exact liberal ideas within the countries. And 4 behaviors that show the democratization is, first one is the rejection. When the democratic parties come to the government, the first thing they start to change is the constitutions. And then after the change the constitutions, they control the overbodies of the institutions. And second one is the denial of the opponent's legitimacy. Of course, they stop to reach the people's, the opponents, the opposition parties are not have like funds to represent their ideas, or they not easily reach the public to express their ideas. And then they tolerate or encourage violent behaviors. For example, they started to support the specific groups within the country, and then, for example, provide some guns or etc. And then they acting like so-called like the protector or something, and they create a different image in front of the society. And the fourth one is restricting civil liberties, which are the like education or usage of media. And okay, I can pass here. Now we are coming to the EU mechanisms. From the establishment of the European Union, the democracy is the first principle that they try to protect and to consolidate, of course, within the member states. So they started to add political layer to their inside the union, because we know that they are firstly established over the economic reasons. With the single European Act, they add the democracy, they add the political layer into their structure. And this has happened with the 2 important changes. The first, they add the qualified majority voting, and then the European Parliament, which is the main representative of the democracy within the European Union institutions. And before getting deeply, I just want to give a little information about the bodies, because I'm going to talk about a lot of the name. As we know that European Commission is the executive arm of the European Union. We have the Council of Ministers, and we have the European Council, of course, the high level of policy making to set the EU strategies and budgets. Also, as I mentioned, we have the European Parliament that shares the legislative power with councils, exercise democratic supervision of the EU institutions. And we have the European Court of Justice, which gives the legal judgment on the cases before it. And with the democracy represented the European Union in the Treaty on the European Union in 1992. In Article 2 stated that the Union is founded on the values respect for human dignity, freedom, democracy, equality, the rule of law, and respect for human rights, including the rights of persons belonging to minorities. This is the main thing that European Unions protect democracy within their members. So if there is if the country is not proper for the Article 2, they have some punishment strategies they have mentioned in the Article 7 in the same treaty. And then we have the Maastricht Treaty in 1993. The concept of democracy and the rule of law has become the principal solving countries that have bilateral relations with the European Union. They started to democracy put forward and try to protect within their members, and they created 3 pillars with the Maastricht Treaty. And we have the Amsterdam Treaty, which entered into force in 1999. These treaties did not provide as much radical changes as the first one, but they started to add democracy or between the articles, of course. And we have the Laeken Declaration. The European Union, in the declaration, they stated that the European Union should be more democratic, more transparent, and more efficient within the framework of their enlargement strategies. And in 2009, the Lisbon Treaty emphasized the deepening process that started in the Maastricht Treaty, and they trying to solve the problems about the democracy within the members. And the second one is the conditionality that European Union use protect the democracy against especially the candidate countries. The concept of political conditionality has come to the fore in the context of promoting democracy, as I said, and the EU reinforced conditionality with a reward for keeping the enthusiasm of the parties to implement the conditions alive. Like if one country want to be a European Union member, they have to fulfill all the conditionalities that European Unions put. So they said that the rule of law is part of the Europe's DNA. It's part of where we come from and where we need to go. It makes us what we are. They are still continue to be the representative of democracy in the international arena. And in the Article 7 in the Treaty of European Union, also they said that the Union is founded on the principle of liberty, democracy, respect for human rights, fundamental freedoms, and the rule of law, of course. And we are seeing that they started to deeply talk about the institutions, and they put democracy to every institutions. And at the same time, they wanted the candidate countries to be democratic for their all government bodies. And of course, they created the Copenhagen criteria. This criteria created after the collapse of the Soviet Union, because when the Soviet Union collapsed, the post-communist countries wanted to be a European Union member, because at that time they have two chances to do. The first one is to be a member of the European Union and NATO, and the second one is to turn back to our traditional allies, to Russia. And they wanted to immediately to be member of the European Union, and they started their process. In order against this shifting, the European Union just created the Copenhagen criteria to be create democratic standards in the country's administration for the EU membership, because they are the communist countries, and this is not that much easy to change one communist country to become a democratic one. And you can see that they within the framework, they draw attention to certain principles via acquis communautaire. And the acquis communautaire means that the candidate countries have to achieve stability of their institutions, the rule of law, of course, the human rights, protection of the minority rights, functional market economy. These are the conditions that every candidate country have fulfilled. And they published Agenda 2000, which was created by the European Union Commission to, of course, strengthening the democratic policies within the Union. And now we are coming to my cases, Hungary and Poland. First, we are looking at the Europeanization of the Hungary. Hungary was the most successful and comprehensive among the countries in political transition. When the Soviet Union collapsed, they adopted the idea of to return to Europe. They shift their policies, their institution, even their social movements turn to Europe. And they make the national roundtable talks with Socialist Workers' Party Hungary, and they liberate Hungary from the dictatorial regime and ensure the institutional order for a democratic regime to function. And they stated in the Agenda 2000, Hungary presents the characteristic of a democracy with stable institutions, guaranteeing the rule of law, human rights, and respect for and protection of the minorities. And I think this is a little bit interesting, because it is not that much easier one country to change their direction that much fastly to democracy, but they did. In the first parliament formed in Hungary in 1992, the Association Council, the Association Committee, and the Joint Parliamentary Committee were established at the government level. And in order to follow up to European integration within Hungary, they created the European Integration Cabinet, Integration State Secretariat, and Interministerial Committee for European Integration to check how Hungary integrated themselves to European Union. In 1994, Hungary officially applied for European Union membership, and at the same time, European Union created a FAIR program to support the democratic developments within the Union, and they provide them to some economic fundings to increase their structure. And in the face of these progresses, Hungary's membership will be completed in 2004, and Hungary became the country that completed this process the fastest among other candidate countries, and Hungary became the first and fastest country that complete all the conditionalities that European Union wants. And when we come to Poland, of course, Poland adopted the same way. They changed their return to Europe. But Poland's membership is not that much easy and fast like the Hungarian did. This is due to the complexity of the EU acquis and the existing political structure in Poland. And they, in 1991, they have the Europe Agreement. They started to adopt the European Union's policies and structures within their own institutions. And then the SLD, Democratic Left Alliance government, and PSL government submitted a request for the full membership to the European Union. And they, of course, published a white paper for to prepare the Central and Eastern countries for the integration to the internal market. They, at the same time, they want to be democratic, and at the same time, they continue to support these countries from economically, within they are not a member of them still. And the negotiations regarding the candidacy were concluded at the European Council Summit in Copenhagen in 2002. And now we are going to look the backsliding in the Hungary. With the elections, the Hungarian Socialist Party, which had been ruling the country for 8 years, was replaced by the nationalist populist Fidesz and its ally Christian Democratic People's Party. As a result of the elections, under the leadership of the Orban, the right-wing populist parties, they came to the power like over the 15% of the votes of the 2/3 of majority, and they are still on the power. And you can see the right one is the Orban and the left one is the Shamil. I don't know the exact pronunciation name. And the first thing that when the Orban came to the power, as I mentioned in the beginning, the first things they started to change the constitutions, of course. They started to destroy the separation of the powers. They reduced the parliamentary powers, judicial independence, of course, and they started to put the pressure over the media and, of course, to eliminate the necessity of the calling a 4/5 majority, because in order to give a decision or in order to create a constitutional in order to want to change the constitution, they have to need the 4/5 majority, but with the elimination of that, they have the only power in the government. And then they continue to their like the democratic actings that they created the 4th Amendment to the Basic Law of Hungary in 2011. Against these amendments, the Article 259 of the Treaty of the Functioning of the European Union said that a member state which considered that another member state has failed to fulfill an obligation under the treaties may bring the matter before the Court of Justice of the European Union. Because with this 4th Amendment of the Basic Law, Hungary is clearly destroyed the democracy within their country. Can continue. And they created, of course, a joint letter in 2013 and demanding that the Commission play a more active role and creating a strong mechanism to protect the EU's establishment values. And then at the end of these, the democratic signals, they created the Tavares report from the member of the European Parliament, the Portuguese. He said that we have to create the Article 2 like the alarm agenda because they are not still compatible with the and they're not have the Article 2 within their borders. And then they wanted to create the Article 2 trialogue to manage and check the checks and balances system within the countries with the elected members of the Council, Commission, and the Parliament. And they also want the Copenhagen Commission, which are the experts, the independent experts that go and check the Hungary by time to time, and this still they have the Copenhagen criteria, sorry, and they have to clearly state that the applicability of the Article 7, which is the nuclear option, as I mentioned before, if the countries are not suitable for the Article 2, the European Union have to implement the right to Article 7, which means that the European Union have stopped all the relations with that country for like until the Hungary, for example, turn back to democratic side. And Hungary is like they are creating like the endless loop. The Hungary did something undemocratic, and European Union started to said that, okay, you don't have to do this. This is not good for us, but there's nothing happen at the end of the day. And Hungary still continue to say that we are Hungarians, do not want Europe any longer. Our freedom is limited and not widened. Or they said that this is why we are writing of our constitution and we don't want any unsolicited help from strangers who are keen to guide us. Hungary must turn its own axis. This means that they just want to act only they, without they're acting like without not in the European Union, but they are still the European Union member. And the European Commission has proposed to the Council a new warning processes, Article 7, and the infringement procedures. This is the problem, I think, in here is that they have always creating the papers, creating the warnings, or they go to the television, the European Union, like the parliament members are talking about Hungary is not proper for us, or Hungary is not democratic anymore, but the things that are not enough to stop them, and European unions cannot stop them, that's just endless. And of course, they continue to like create a rule of law framework, they change, and then European Union reacts to them with the, for example, the infringement procedure. Can look. And in May, the European Parliament issued a resolution on the grounds that the current situation in Hungary, and they created a resolution that calls the Commission to strictly monitor the EU funds. Okay, the first thing they use the sanctions about, of course, the fundings, and they always want Hungary and Poland, of course, to cut the fundings to them if they are continuing to their undemocratic practices. And Viktor Orban joined EPP in 2000s and served the vice president from the 2010 to 2011. And in March 2019, they suspend Fidesz request of the parties in the EPP. And against this, they the reason that they suspend the Fidesz party is that we cannot compromise on democracy, rule of law, freedom of press, academic freedom, or minority rights, and anti-EU rhetoric is unacceptable. And against this, the Orban stated that these regulations are undemocratic, unfair, and unacceptable. Therefore, the Fidesz board has decided to leave the EPP grant as soon as possible. It's just creates the dilemma between two of them, both of them calling themselves like the undemocratic. And when the COVID epidemic, the state of the emergency, at that time, they controlled the disclosure of the data about the epidemics and the functioning of the country's healthcare system and the death statistics, of course, and they stopping the flow of the information between the countries. And all the things happened in undemocratic, and the recent elections, they elected again. As a result of the National Assembly elections in the 2022, the Orban government is elected with this 67% of the majority vote. And now we are coming to the Poland, which carried out the transition from socialism more peaceful than the other post-communist countries. And then they have the Love of Justice Party. They founded in the 2001 and became the first party in the 2005 elections. And after the opposition period, peace came to the power alone in 2015. And after as we are seeing the same things what happened in Hungary, the first things that peace come to the power is the change their constitution again. They re-elected the constitutional court members. And after these constitutional changes, the EU warned Warsaw about a series of sanctions, of course, and the right of the participation decisions, the cancellation of it. And of course, with this law, they endangered the principle of the separation of power, and they again increased the power of the over the media, of course. And after this framework that Polish created, the European Commission activated the rule of law framework for Poland. This is for the first time, and wanted to find a solution to the problem through the bilateral dialogue. And according to the view of the Venice Commission, which is the advisory body of the Council of Europe, Democracy cannot be reduced to the rule of the majority. Majority rule is limited by the constitution and by law, primarily in order to safeguard the interests of the minorities. And they are still continue to warn Poland about their backsliding, that how they put danger like the rule of law and democracy, of course. And after the first recommendation cannot work against Poland, they activated the second stage. And they said that emergence of a systematic threat of the rule of law in the Poland developed into a clear risk of a serious branches. Like this is triggered the use of the Article 7 that I mentioned before. And Commission Vice President give them a 3-month period to peace government to reduce the democratization within their country. But they are not doing anything after this 3 months, and they again adopted the third rule of law recommendations. To again, they just warn about their Supreme Court law, their judiciary, their the other bodies of the other democratic bodies, especially within their Poland. And thank you for all the listening. But before ending, I just want to say that why European Union is not that much successful to stop this. The first one is, I think, the unanimity. In order to stop the Poland or Hungary, it doesn't matter. If you they decided to, for example, cut the funds against the Poland, and Hungary said that, okay, we veto it and you don't have any use these sanctions or the cutting the funds against the Poland. This creates like the endless loop between the European Union at the other side, that the Hungary is the first representative of the democratic countries within the European Union, and this gives the courage to Poland to continue this process. Even I think without Hungary changing their democratic order, I think the Poland cannot change, because they followed each other. And I think they're just interdependent each other, and the European Union is creating a bunch of papers and resolutions and etc., but they're not clearly find the solution to stop the democratization within that countries, because it's not that much connected with the European Union. It is have to this is more dependent on Hungary and Poland inside, of course, the society. If you don't want to change their president, it's not going to change, and the European Union cannot do anything about it. So it is a complicated, and I think the not that much like the endless process, I think. I don't know, we can see in future what's going to happen. And thank you for listening. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for this interesting presentation. It's always good to listen. Each time I discover something new from the case studies. So you can moderate to take the questions, because we are just seeing the participants on the platform, or here in the classroom. Maybe some of our participants can address a question directly. We have some participants, students also coming from Poland. Maybe they would like to contribute to discussions or add something.
Okay, it would be better to know that from the Poland.
Yes, but well, I haven't thought of any question, because everything that you said is correct, unfortunately. And I can only add that it's very the government is in both countries, I think, working against the people's will, and it's a huge shame for us that there is nothing as a conclusion. There isn't really a way for the European Union or any other institution to stop this democratization process that's happening. And do you think there is a solution for that? Did you find any pieces?
Yeah, I think there is not exact solution for to solve this, because this depends have much of variety in there, because like society, of course, the main reason that they're elected, and they know that they restrict the media or they acting against the rule of law, but they're still continue to elect them, as we're seeing in the recent elections in Hungary. So this is not just that the EU can do only solve these problems. This have to be solved within their borders, but if they don't want to solve, they cannot exclude these two countries, of course, outside the European Union. But I don't know, this, I think it's not in the recent time, in the close, not easily solve this problem. Okay, you can.
Are there any questions there?
Yes.
We cannot see here.
Okay. Bu ekran paylaşımını kapatayım mı?
Yeah, please turn off presentation.
Okay.
And stop sharing, and we will be able to see the.
I stopped sharing, but this is.
Let me check.
Gelir herhalde, gitti hocam.
Okay. Samet has a question so far.
Emre'den.
Okay. Samet,
Yes.
please.
Yeah. Thank you so much, expert Ms. Gacener. It's a very insightful seminar, and thank you so much for all your effort. Well, I'm participating from Poland now. I'm studying European studies. Well, the question is, as we know, there are some democratic backsliding and anti-democratic applications in Poland and Hungary, and we know the Article 2 of European Union or Lisbon Treaty and Article 7 of the Maastricht or European Union Agreement is not working so far, and the 7th article of the nuclear option is also doesn't work. So what are the future expectations for to stop the democratic backsliding from EU of Poland and Hungary?
Thank you for your question. I don't know, maybe this is going to be realistic, but they have to use the harsh sanctions to them to stop this backsliding, because they're softly warning them with the papers, with the speakings or with the meetings, but this is not work, and they have to harsh the implementation over for the both country to stop their backsliding. But this is not again happened because they have the unanimity and they're not clearly decide using the hard, like the nuclear options over the Hungary and Poland. And this is just like the dilemma or something, like they're not, it seems like they're not going to end, like, but I don't know what the future comes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Emre, if you want, you can ask.
Hi, Ecem, and I would like to say hi all the ones in the classroom, and Gökçe and the others. I would like to add something that you mentioned about the Orban, and also one question. And when I was in Brussels, I had a meeting with the parliamentarians, and one of the Italian parliamentarians said that also post Russia-Ukraine war, they tried to convince Orban for 3 weeks to put sanctions, and he uses unanimity as a tool to get what he wants. So his attitude is different. He wants to, dissolve the unanimity, but I agree with you that Orban is using unanimity as a tool to, I don't know what he wants to do. And when I pop up the question, I think you put an image for the first half of the presentation and 3 waves for the democratization processes. And I'm wondering that firstly the Syrian, refugee crisis, and then COVID pandemic and Russia-Ukraine war. So these are the can be counted as the real reasons behind this backsliding, because the report that you mentioned is the year is 2013, and after the refugee crisis, and backsliding is still going on. So I'm wondering that I wonder that maybe these important steps also put forward to backsliding in the European Union. And thank you.
Yes, of course, they are the like we can call them the authoritarian ones, or they're the anti-migration. Of course, they are not support the immigration, and also they, as I mentioned, the COVID pandemic. They're not. They use the COVID like to control the government institutions better with the creating like the emergency. And of course, these are the main things that they improve their backsliding within their borders. So they just use every position to increase their de-democratization within their country. So that's it.
Thank you.
Okay, ask you.
It's much more opinion sharing rather than the question. Firstly, congratulations to your TESOL and graduation. The cutting fund is much more affected the people, students, and discuss the people's situation bad to worse, actually. But governments cannot affect the EU's cutting the funding side.
Yes, but the thing here is that they use the funds not for the society. They use the funds there for their like for the improve their own ideas. This is for this reason EU want to cut the funds against the Hungary and Poland. For example, they have the huge fundings for the COVID pandemic, but they're using that funds not for the solve the COVID-19 within their borders. They use funds for their own. So European Union for this reason offered to cut the fundings for the both countries. This is of course affect the society, but as we know, this if one country is at a tendency to de-democratization, they are not thinking that my society. We are living in that kind of a country in here. Okay, we are seeing that the economic they are bad, but there's still not that much care the societies what happened, or they're not want to care that okay, we have the European Union fundings, then we have to use this for society. Of course, this is not the first thing that they're thinking. So this is the bad, but for the European Unions, but they have to do that something to stop for both country, like the carrot and stick. They said that if you stop the democratic tendencies, they said that we will give you money. This is a basic thing for.
How is it from the EU's function?
Yeah. So this can be another question based on, as a follow-up, what Ezgi asked. I mean, briefly, what is missing? Yes, there can be some punishments against the governments of these countries, but in the system of the European Union, which tools and instruments are still missing to protect the level of democracies? Do you have an idea about it, or do you have a proposal? Or there is something, but they don't use?
I think they have clearly informed how they protect or how they implement democracy within their treaties, but they're not functionally used to within their member countries, and of course within their institutions, I think. So this first of all, this creates a problem within the European Union rather than the Hungary and Poland. This is of course the problem of the European Union at first. So the unsolved democratization within their members of course damage their reputation in the international arena as well. So they are the first they emerge first the representative of the democracy in the history, and they continue to protect them. But now we are seeing that the democratization happen in within their members. So this is the reason that the absence within their implementation of democracy to their member countries, because they have they find the space, they have the gap between the treaties or their institutions, European institutions, and they continue to use that, as we said, the unanimity, for example. They are not changing this, and the Hungary and Poland find the gap in the European Union structure, and they continue to use this, and this is the absence of the European Union to protect democracy from the past to present. Okay, I'm ready.
Thank you very much, Ecem. Maybe I missed, but you didn't come out with a clear-cut hypothesis about the reason for decline of democracy. But implicitly, I realize that you put emphasis on, again, Levitsky, the linkages, right? International linkages and their role in, consolidating democracy. As far as I can read what's going on, beyond this procedural issue that you've been mentioning, unanimity, functional EU, I think now, from a global perspective, I think we need to see that there's a decline of the liberal order in general.
Yes.
The appeal of liberal order among masses. So the promise of, democracy will bring, welfare for the wider society. That thesis has been undermined in many ways, and that paved the way to, as far as I see, it increased the appeal of those kind of populist leaders. And that's existential crisis for not only you, but for also, undermines the very basis of liberal international order. So on the other hand, on the other side of that equation, we have this rise of authoritarian gravity centers led by China. And that's another international linkage, which is also playing a role, not only maybe militarily, but also discursively.
Yes, even the Putin, they affect.
Yeah, I mean, their appeal plays an, I think, instrumental role as well. What would you say on this? Because, I mean, my point is that
Yes.
beyond all these technicalities, I think we need, that's the elephant in the room.
Yes, but as I mentioned while the presentation, I said that Poland continued these tendencies because Hungary is democratic. This gives Poland the power to continue to be in a democratic. And we are looking from the global perspective. You're right. We are seeing that Trump, of course, support the Orbán's and the Poland at the same time, and the Putin, of course, support the Orbán's ideas against the European Union, of course. So this gives them the power to continue to be in a democratic because they are rising. They have the power of course, the foreign powers. So this gives them a space to act more democratic day by day. So this is, as you mentioned, this is the global crisis. I think we are seeing so like being a democratic now famous. I think in the world politics, like the numbers are rise, and I think this will create a huge crisis in the future in the politics, in the global politics.
By the way, it's quite interesting because that's happening inside of India.
Yes, for this reason.
Of course, we lost our, anchor, EU anchor, and we are not a member anyway. But that's happening inside of the European Union. It's quite an interesting case. So quite interesting to look.
Yeah. This is interesting for me to research because we are like living the same kind of a state in Turkey, and our goal is to be in a European member, to be in a more democratic, but now we are seeing that the European Union is not that much democratic, like they are not continue their democratization. So this is interesting for me to research the European Union side. And now I am clearly more understand what's happening in Turkey. And
so EU is losing its appeal on the wider society as well.
Yes, their reputation is decreased with this rising of the democratization. But this is not, I think, stuff with the Hungary and Poland. We are seeing in the French or Italy, of course, some authoritarian party members start to raise their voice, but I don't know if they will add themselves to Hungary and Poland or not. We will see, of course.
So what's the future agenda for you now? For scholars?
I think I continue with this topics for the within the European Union, and I wanted to be the more expert about the European Union's the workings, the mechanisms, and look deeply more with the relations of the other countries as well.
Ecem, thank you so much, and thanks to all participants here and online. Now
Thank you.
the system is under your moderation, so you can close the session. If you would like to add something, please add. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for all of you to come and listen to me. And of course, I want to say thank you. And again, my thesis Professor Gökay and my, of course, my jury members. Without their support and their ideas, it is like impossible for me to finish successfully my thesis process, because it's a long and fluctuated and struggle process to come up with a one research question and end it with a one solution. Of course, we are not clearly answered the one definite one, but I'm trying to make the clear thing about my thesis, of course. So thank you for all again. Come and listen to me and my friends in the class, of course, and thank you for joining.